This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to Chapter 1 of our series, Behind the Curtain, Psychological Tricks in Negotiation. In this episode, titled Anchoring, Setting the Stage, we'll explore the fascinating concept of anchoring and how it shapes the way we negotiate. So, whether you're closing a deal or just chatting about a price, you'll discover the power of the first number mentioned. Let's dive in. A single sentence can quietly cost you thousands. A job offer, a project bid, a house listing. Whoever says the first number often steers everything that follows. In this episode, we'll pull back the curtain on how that opening move shapes your career negotiations. That first sentence with a number in it doesn't just start the conversation. It quietly redraws the map of what feels possible. Most professionals think they're being reasonable, when in reality, they're orbiting around whoever set the terms first. The twist: this isn't just about salary talks. It shows up when a client says, "Our budget is tight," when a manager calls something a stretch opportunity, or when a company brands a role as lead versus junior. Labels, ranges, even job titles can all act like invisible price tags on your time and talent. In this episode, we'll explore how those subtle signals shape what you ask for, what you accept, and what you walk away from. You'll see how strong anchors can make modest gains feel huge, and how weak ones can make great offers feel oddly disappointing. Then we'll look at how to quietly reset the frame in your favor. Think about how often your work life is quietly pre-priced before you speak. A recruiter's band for this role, a client's standard package, a manager's usual timeline. These aren't just constraints, they're starting points that leak into your sense of what's fair, realistic, or even ambitious. The twist is that your brain rarely tags them as optional. They feel like the going rate, the market norm, the professional thing to agree to. Like a trail sign someone else posted, they nudge your internal compass so subtly that by the time you propose a counter, you're often arguing inside their map, not yours. Most people first meet anchoring in salary talks, but it quietly shapes far more of your career than what shows up on your payslip. Think about 3 zones where anchors routinely slip in. 1. Scope and workload. A manager says, "This should only take a couple of hours." That estimate isn't neutral. It's an anchor on what reasonable effort sounds like. Now, saying, "This is actually a 10 to 12-hour project," feels like you're overshooting, even if you're being precise. The same happens when a client calls a 6-month initiative a quick engagement. Early language about time and complexity narrows what later feels like a fair ask for resources, support, or headcount. 2. Seniority and status. Titles like assistant, coordinator, or lead quietly anchor how others evaluate your contribution. A project coordinator negotiating budget is heard differently from a program manager asking for the same amount, even with identical responsibilities. Hiring managers know this. Branding a role as emerging talent instead of specialist can justify a different pay band and promotion trajectory before you've done a single day of work. 3. Performance and potential. Early labels, high ceiling, solid performer, need structure. Anchor expectations long before formal reviews. Once a narrative is set, new information is unconsciously bent to fit it. A small mistake by someone tagged as top 5% is read as an outlier. The same mistake from someone described as still ramping is read as confirmation. Over a few cycles, these subtle anchors can change who gets stretch projects, sponsorship, or air cover when things go wrong. Notice how often anchors arrive packaged as context. Given the budget climate, for someone at your level, for a team our size. These phrases sound like background, but they quietly compress the range of options you consider. And because they're framed as constraints, challenging them can feel like you're being naive or difficult. The trap is that you may start anchoring yourself to these stories. After hearing, "This is great exposure," enough times, you may stop questioning whether exposure without influence, staff, or pay actually serves you. Over time, past anchors about what you're worth What's normal, what's possible here, can harden into an invisible ceiling you don't think to test. A recruiter says, "This role tops out around 95." And suddenly, 96 feels bold, even if peers elsewhere earn 120. Now zoom out. Entire career paths can be quietly steered this way. Early in your career, you might accept unpaid speaking gigs for visibility. Do enough of them and "I speak for free" becomes the default, making a modest honorarium later feel like a big step rather than a baseline. Anchors also show up when you're changing fields. If you're moving from nonprofits or academia into tech, offers often reference your previous salary, not the new market. Unless you consciously step outside that frame, you risk dragging an old pay structure into a new industry. One more subtle version: culture anchors. Join a team where "we're scrappy" is code for 60-hour weeks, and your sense of what's sustainable quietly shifts. It's like starting a hike at high altitude. After a while, thin air feels normal, and you forget you can choose a different trail. Anchors don't just nudge single decisions. Over months, they can redraw the map you navigate by. As AI starts proposing recommended ranges for everything from SaaS contracts to freelance rates, those defaults may feel like neutral benchmarks when they're really loaded dice. Organizations will need people who can read these numbers like an art critic reads a canvas, seeing who chose the frame, whose interests it serves, and where the edges of possibility have been cropped out. Soon, even performance tools and promotion portals will quietly suggest typical steps, like faint pencil lines on a sketch. You're not obliged to trace them. Your edge won't be knowing every bias by name, but noticing when the canvas feels too small, and daring to redraw the margins before you start filling in the details. To go deeper, here are 3 next steps. 1. Re-listen to the anchoring, setting the stage section, where they walk through pairing a physical object with a desired state. Then grab a small item you touch daily, like your keys or mug, and deliberately rehearse linking it to one specific feeling, for example, calm focus, for 5 minutes using the exact sequence they described. 2. Download and use the free Trigger Action Planner template from Michael Hyatt's Full Focus Resources, or a similar cue-based habits worksheet, to map 3 daily anchors: one for starting your workday, one for transitioning out of work, and one for winding down at night, each tied to a concrete cue in your environment. 3. For deeper skill building, read the State Management chapter in Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, and practice his step-by-step anchoring exercise while you're in a genuinely strong, positive state. Then test that anchor later today during a mildly stressful moment to see if it reliably shifts your state. This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow!